my name is Nicola Anderson. I'm the CEO and founder of Capacity to Grow. I work with scaling SMEs in the UK.
The biggest question everybody has is AI going to take our jobs?
AI is not going to take your job. So if you're using AI and you're trying to embrace it, you'll be fine.
What do you think happens when so many of the employees get access to AI? Do you believe or do you think employees get a lot more lazier compared to more productive?
It depends what you mean by lazier. If they're just putting it into AI and then just sitting there and doing nothing for the rest of the day, that's lazy. The time that they're saving by doing that, they're then doing something else, that's not lazy, that's working smart.
I'm a big user of AI myself.
Yeah.
In our company, we do use AI. We do develop AI tools for our clients as well.
Fantastic.
I believe can cause serious harm, and Claude has on the terms and conditions, they mention that, and they do say, hey, look, Claude can't be right every time, and don't use it that way. Let's say that you have trained someone really well, and obviously you expect them to perform at a certain standard. If that good is still not getting achieved, and you have tried everything.
Yes.
My argument on it is, if a person can't perform the job, I would replace. That's the way I look at it as a founder.
You won't regret trying something, but you will regret not trying. So, I think that if you've got opportunities that come your way and it's something you want to do, something you want to try, especially for a business owner, if you think that actually, you want to go out alone and do it, if you want it hard enough, if you want it enough and you're prepared to put in the work, do it.
Thank you for coming on this podcast, Nicole. It's a pleasure to have you. And I'll start by just asking about yourself. If you just want to tell us a bit about yourself, what you do and your background, and then we take it from there.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for having me on, firstly. It's great to be here. My name is Nicola Anderson. I'm the CEO and founder of Capacity to Grow. So I am a freelance business consultant. I work with scaling SMEs in the UK, and I help founders get out of the founder dependency box. So I've been doing that now for 5 years. And prior to that, I worked for 25 years predominantly in the construction industry. And I ran commercial, operational and project delivery teams, delivering high value modular building projects. Prior to that, I've also worked in the education sector and the media as well. So you
have had a lot of shifts. Why did you switch from educational and media to construction?
So I guess kind of, like many people, when you start off, I didn't go to university. I didn't do A-levels. I kind of did my GCSEs and I was like, I just want to work. I was kind of like, I was bored of school. That's me done. I'm kind of, I want to get out there and start working. And, that was back in the day when you could have a Saturday job when you're 13. These days it's a bit trickier, right? Mm-hmm. So I'd been working since I was quite young anyway. And so, I decided I just wanted to go into the workplace. I did a college course in business admin at the time and just started off on a path.
How was that college course back then?
Yeah, it was okay. I mean, when I actually left school, I initially thought I was going to go to art college. Okay. I've always been quite creative and thought art college was for me and I got a place, but that didn't really work out. And instead I decided to take the business route and I went off and did a business admin course for 2 years, learned about a lot really about kind of the structure of business and kind of what's needed. And it was at a time when, without giving my age away, it was about a time when everything was becoming automated. So it kind of, it was really good for me to understand what that meant for businesses, what the opportunity was for businesses, and to, I learned how to do a bit of coding and everything at that time. So it gave me a really good grounding. And then I went into kind of the first job that I could get at the time, and I was living in Wales at that time, was in the public sector. So I was working for the local government. I did that for a good few years. It gave me a really good...
How did you land a job with the local government when you quit school?
Yes, well, where I grew up in Wales, there wasn't an awful lot of employers there. So the employers were limited and the biggest employer was the local authority, it was the local government. So, and so I kind of applied for a few jobs and was successful in getting that one. And started off just in a basic admin role and in the library service at the time, actually. So, and just kind of worked my way up whilst there through to kind of into a project coordination type role. And then from there, I kind of decided it was time to spread my wings a little bit and move further afield. So I moved from the middle of Wales, in rural Wales, out to Aberystwyth on the coast. And I landed a job with the local newspaper there, Cambrian News. So it was my first foray into kind of media, really. And they were going through an automation project at the time. So that was at the time when they were taking all their adverts, all their orders for ads on pen and paper, on triplicate pads back then. Okay. So, but they were ready to be automated, and as well from editing point of view as well and production point of view, they were looking to be automated. So I went in on a temporary role to help with the automation and ended up staying there for a little while. And then from there, decided to move somewhere else bigger, kind of got the bug for it a little bit. And my husband was offered a role in London. So off to London we went. And I was really fortunate that the systems I'd helped implement at the local newspaper, which was the Cambrian News in Aberystwyth, was the same system that had just been implemented at the Telegraph in London. And at the time, the Telegraph were in Canary Wharf. And so I was really lucky. It was the first job I applied for when I got to London, and I got it because of the system knowledge I had. And so, yeah, I worked in the advertising department for the Telegraph for a number of years and really enjoyed it. And it was great. It was at the time when Canary Wharf was still the biggest building in London at the time. And I watched the rest of them buildings built around it. It was really cool. It was just before the Millennium. So it was a good time to be in London.
Advertising back then. So how would you compare advertising back then to now? If you happen to summarize, I know there's a lot behind it, but if you summarize, for example, the newspapers, I do know that a lot has moved into the digital world.
Yeah, absolutely.
And how would you compare the two big worlds? And obviously we touched AI later on, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that at the time it was, the web was growing, the internet was growing, and, things were starting to move online because this was, as I say, this was back at the Millennium. And they just started the online newspaper as well. So and so it was a really good time to be involved in that world, really, and to see, how the world was changing and that the world was starting to shrink.
Can you compare that movement to what we currently have going on with the AI, do you think? Was it something along those
definitely.
lines?
I think you're 100% right. Absolutely. And I say this to people because I'm a big embracer and lover of AI. Use it all the time in my businesses and my clients' businesses. And absolutely, we're at a really fundamental point where things are shifting and they're shifting fast. And back then, it was a case of everything was shifting. The internet was out there, people were using it, but it was becoming more and more part of everyday life. And people were going online, shops were going online, e-commerce was coming about. It was a real period of change. We're talking 26 years ago now, right? And so it was a real period of change, and it was making the world smaller in a good way because it was making it more accessible too. And then obviously, it's kind of, just snowballed from there really, hasn't it? And then I think where we are now with AI, if I think back to how I used AI a year ago, odd thing with chat, that was kind of it, using ChatGPT. These days, when we're only a year on, I've got all sorts of automations happening and I'm using all sorts of AI tools, and I'd be absolutely lost without it. My business wouldn't be what it is now without AI. And I see that in my clients' businesses as well. And I think, AI is not going to go away. It's here. And so it needs to be embraced, just like, 26 years ago when we were embracing the internet and the online world. It's like, if you don't embrace it, you'll get left behind. And there are various industries that, so it's not so prevalent in and not so needed, but there's every part of running a business has the benefit of implementing AI. And there are businesses where it'll be implemented or it'll be a necessary part of the business more so than others. So if you're running a service-based business, if you're running a B2B business, if you're running a creative agency or something like that, then AI is going to be all over your business, right? If you are running a trade business, maybe a B2C, if you say you're electricians or a joiner or a painter and decorator, so you're not going to use it to do your job. Not yet. But you will run it to use, if you want to be successful and if you want to stay ahead of the game and you want your business to have longevity, then you will start to be using AI in the way that you actually run your back office systems. And I think as somebody that spent 25 years in construction, I can absolutely see how, it needs to be embraced in all industries, but it's where it's embraced. And I think if you don't, then you will get left behind, unfortunately.
What was the biggest thing that you think, because I know currently the biggest stress, the biggest question everybody has is AI going to take our jobs? Because now you have seen the newspaper shifting from pen and paper to the internet.
Yeah.
What was the biggest thing that the humans back then did to adopt to internet, essentially? Was it the same kind of scary vibes that we have now?
Yeah, it wasn't quite as I think there was people that were like nervous of it, don't understand how it would benefit me, that doesn't compute. Whereas I think it's a bit different now, because at the moment now we've got people who are thinking that AI is coming for their jobs and, it's going to do me out of a job. Now, AI will take some jobs, already has, but it's also creating jobs as well. And, the way I see it is, AI is not going to take your job per se. It's not going to take your chance of having a job away. It's going to take away the chance of you having a job for those people who don't embrace it and don't use AI. So if you're using AI and you're trying to embrace it, you'll be fine. You will find a role, if it's not the one that you used to have, or it'll elevate your role, or it'll elevate your business. But if you're somebody that's kind of, I'm not touching it, I know it's not for me, you will get left behind. And so then you potentially will not have a job at some point. So it's more about AI, how it can enable you. It's an enabler, and it's part of what businesses should be. And who knows where it's going to end up, because, it's moving so fast and there's so many tools there. And not everybody can know everything. So, I think there's a lot of people out there who say they're AI experts, and they are, but they can't know every tool because it's all moving so quickly. Everything can integrate with everything. So I think what it's more about is understanding the structure of how a business works, the structure of how business works, and then understanding what elements of it you can expedite, you can improve, you can elevate with AI. So I think...
Another big concern that, I was in a meeting yesterday in London with one of the lawyers, and he's a lawyer that does deals on a bigger level between countries as well at one point. And what he told me, there's a lot of AI companies that are coming on board. The biggest challenge or the biggest fear currently between the top end businesses is the fact that they don't know how that data is getting processed, or they don't know how much of that data, because it's an open source at the end of the day, how much of that data actually stays confidential to us to say. What are your thoughts on that? What's your opinion?
Yeah, and I think that there is an element of truth to that, absolutely. And I think that's where... Yes, if you're using Claude or using ChatGPT or Gemini or, Copilot, then absolutely. If you're not using the paid for versions, you should be. If you're running a business or you're putting any kind of data in, you need to be paying, you need to be on a subscription, because otherwise your data is available to everybody. And then from a point of view of something like a legal services, absolutely, you need to lock it down. But you can do that. So Copilot, that's locked down as part of Microsoft, obviously. It's not, I don't believe it's as powerful as using something like ChatGPT. And Claude is just another level if you use Claude. But it's about how you lock the system down. And you can create your own LLMs, you can use your own systems, you can, if you're in the legal profession, I'm sure it already exists. I'm sure somebody's already created an AI that's based on law, that's based on, legislation, UK legislation that is completely locked down. I'm sure it's there already. And if it's not, it's really easy to create. So I think that's for those that don't understand and haven't educated themselves in AI, that's an easy worry to have, but there's ways around it. And I think that those are going to be tighter and tighter as we move forward, And
definitely there is ways around it. Obviously, you could just, as you said, you could just, maybe download our local model and stick everything on the local files and not even connect it to the cloud and so on. However, what my biggest, you can call it fear, or what the biggest question essentially stays is, with the open source or the open chat, essentially there is a lot of individuals that I personally know, a lot of people, nowadays, they got very dependent of putting every single thing on there, from their bank statements to the letters that they receive to legal letters to everything else.
Yeah.
How is that gonna impact the human society overall, or how is it gonna impact us at the end? Because imagine a chatbot, or imagine any kind of server that obviously they do have a lot of auto data already. There's another debate that we could have on that. But imagine voluntarily putting in all that data, which in a way or another way it still can be accessed. what do you think that people should be aware of that can help them to overcome this fear, or what are the main precautions or the safety guards that they should be aware of in the AI world?
I think it's like anything. You just need to be mindful of the information that you have and where you share it. Would you email your bank statements to anybody? No. So, you need to think about kind of what you're using the data for. Where are you sharing it? Are you using a secure tool? If you're saving it on the cloud, then you've got your own security measures in place, two-factor authentication. You've got to think about where you're saving this information and what you're giving, who you're giving it to, and what you're giving it to. Like I say, if you're just using a free version of ChatGPT and you're putting your personal information in there, you are completely making yourself vulnerable. That is not the way to be using AI. That's just like just leaving it on the side in a coffee shop. That's not clever at all.
Yeah.
So I think it's about being smart with your data, and I think that's something that since the internet came along, we've all it's something we've all learned about being smart with your data. Who gets it's not very often that we get bills in the post anymore, is it? Think about it, like the world's changed, where when the post came, it used to be, oh my god, it's just bills. Now the post comes, it's like, oh, I forgot, because we don't get nasty stuff in the post so much anymore. It comes in your email instead, right? So like the world has changed and your data has changed, and you don't get pieces of paper anymore. It is digital. Banks and government organisations, HMRC, they all have their safety rails and their safety guards to keep your data secure. And it's like you have to keep your own data secure as well. So you have to think about how you're sharing that with AI and how you're using it. But if you pay for a subscription model, then that's the first thing you can be doing to protect your data, rather than just putting it into the free version of ChatGPT, for instance.
Another question that this raises, obviously you work with businesses that are on a certain scale, and what do you think happens when so many of the employees get access to AI? Do you believe, or do you think employees get a lot more lazier compared to more productive, or do they become more productive because they got access to the tools?
I think it depends what you mean by lazier. If they're just putting it into AI and then just sitting there and doing nothing for the rest of the day, that's lazy. If they're putting something into AI, using AI as a tool to enable them to do their job more efficiently, and then the time that they're saving by doing that, they're then doing something else, that's not lazy, that's working smart. And that's using the tools that you have available to you.
Because what I've seen a lot in few businesses, and what happens is individuals started to, or people or staff started to create a lot of these big reports without actually understanding what's happening.
Okay.
So by lazy might be the incorrect word. It would be more of people tend to switch their brains off just because they can get that report made and it looks good and it has a lot of information, and a lot of it obviously is genuinely not even needed in a lot of the cases. How does one balance that in their business?
So I think that is about then how you manage your teams as well, right? And your expectations that you set your team. And I think, we're all, as AI becomes more and more the norm and more people use it, we can all recognize it. It writes in a certain way that there are, you have to be really smart about how you train your AI to actually be your voice and your thoughts. You go on LinkedIn, obviously number one business platform, go on LinkedIn and look at the feed. You can tell who's written a post with AI. You can tell who's written it themselves, and you can tell somebody who's used AI and used it well, because you can tell that it's okay. So there's a splashing of AI there. You can tell by the way it's structured, perhaps, but the thoughts behind it, the logic behind it. If you're following somebody, you can tell when it's kind of it's somebody else. Somebody's voice has been implemented to what they're using. So they're using the tool with their thoughts and their voice, rather than just putting it in, Claude or Chat or whatever, saying, "Can you write me 5 posts this week?" It's like, that's not sharing your logic. And I think that what's happening is that we are in a trust recession. I'm sure you've heard about this, and we are. And it's like, I was having a conversation with somebody yesterday. I was like, I went on a webinar with a lady called Jodie Cook. You might have come across her. And she does some software, and she did a webinar. And straight after that call, and she's got a massive following. She's really great at what she does. She sent me a message on LinkedIn. And my first question was is this really Jodie, or is this Jodie AI? And she said, no, this is really Jodie, because you don't know, right? And it's like, and I think that, we are, which was great, we had a lovely message and that was all good. and I think that there is that we can automate so much, but we're all not all, but that those that are using it are wise to it. They know when you're talking to AI or when you're talking to a human. And fundamentally, people buy from humans, right? So if you're selling a service or you're trying to make a connection, it's a human connection we want. It's not, a digital connection we want. We use AI and we use our digital footprints and our social media presence for credibility. People will go on, I checked you out before we came. I'm sure you checked me out. Like, who is this guy? What does he do? That's really interesting. Wow, look at that. Isn't that interesting? But then when we meet in person, we're connecting as humans. True. And I think, and that's the thing that people need to remember. I think, yes, there's a lot you can do to automate your business, and I'm all for it, but you mustn't use that human connection. You've got to feel that you're having a connection with somebody, because otherwise you'll give your money or you'll buy from, you'll use a service, or, you'll connect with somebody who is giving you that human element. And it's a bit like in the way where, there's so much you can do online these days, which is fantastic, but we all still crave real life connection, right? We all still crave adventure. We all still crave, experience. We still need that as human beings. Mm-hmm. So, those that are, do just live completely online in an online world, you miss something, you miss that connection. It can actually be quite lonely. And I think that's where, when we think about AI, absolutely we should have it in our business. Absolutely, it creates efficiencies. It, it helps businesses grow. If you're at a point where you can't bring somebody else on board yet, that you can't cover that overhead, AI can do some things for you, which is fantastic. It can help improve the customer experience because it can flow things quicker. It can help get a sale quicker. But at the end of the day, if there's no person behind that, there's no identity, then you're probably not going to go with that business if you're looking at two and comparing two. I'm sure probably in the future, probably not in my lifetime, well, I hope not, we'll get to the point where you've probably got an AI business buying from another AI business. But what's the human going to be doing then? Sitting at home on their own,
it's like
lonely,
that social media
sad,
platform.
That's what
that's where I was trying to get. Like, I'm a big user of AI myself. In our company, we do use AI. We do develop AI tools for our clients as well.
Fantastic.
The catch was, or the thing that we noticed a lot more is humans, as more of these tools are showing up, they trying to switch their brains off. They switch their brains off completely in a lot of the cases.
Yeah.
I have had that in my development team. I started to see that.
Okay.
Just because you can write a couple of thousands of lines, of course, much quicker.
It
doesn't mean you have to switch your brain off and not understand what's happening behind it.
Yes.
Ultimately, that data, it could be anything in there, is great, is very helpful, but is a tool, is not someone that should be making the decisions.
Yeah.
And ultimately people confuse that. People start using Claude, a lot of the prompts on Claude essentially, I have had this, what do I do now? Whatever Claude says, they end up doing it, which I believe can cause serious harm. And Claude has, on the terms and conditions, they mention that, and they do say, look, Claude can't be right every time, and don't use it that way.
Yeah.
Having said that, another very interesting thing that came to my mind was, so we touched base on it earlier when we were chatting about it. So you said that different businesses face different challenges throughout the revenue that they are on. If you happen to break down a business from, let's just say, 0 to the first 100K, first 100K to 500,000, then 500,000 to 1 million, then 1 million to 5 million, and 5 million to 10 million. Mm-hmm. What would you say at the starting point? What's the biggest challenge that the business goes through for the first 100K, essentially 0 to 100K? Yeah,
sure. So I think, somebody that's starting out on their own, you're doing everything yourself, because there's no way you can afford to take somebody on when you're kind of like in that, that 0 to 100K, those early days, you'll struggle. So I think, at the beginning, that's very, very much an entrepreneurial kind of, desire is needed. Somebody that is prepared to kind of roll up the sleeves, figure it all out themselves. They've obviously, whatever the business is their thing, their passion, and the thing they're good at, but they're going to have to learn the other skills that are around it as well. So let's just say let's say they're accountant. Yeah. So there's somebody that decided that they want to go out on their own. They don't want to be in practice anymore. So they've gone out on their own. That's great. They've got a skill. They're very good at what they do. But they've also got to market themselves. They've also got to, they've got to go out and find new clients. So they've got to do sales. They've got to do the delivery. So they've got to do the doing. And then maybe they need to look at their systems and their operations side of the business as well. They've got to, look after the facilities they're working from. They've got to be IT. They've got to be every department going. So they've got to do everything. So in those early days, and really that goes all the way up to, I would say, up to the kind of the million mark, really, for a lot of businesses. It's that balance then between working on your business and working in your business. You need to work in your business and actually deliver the service to earn money, to earn a living, to bring in turnover. But unless you're working on your business as well and telling people about your business and marketing your business and getting out there and meeting people and finding clients, you don't have a business. So I think in the very early days, it's that balance. It's the balance between actually doing the do and growing the business. And that's hard. And you will work long hours, and hopefully you get to the point where start to get some clients, you start to get some regular turnover, dependable turnover, because that's the other thing. You want dependability. You want to know what you're going to be turning over as a minimum every month so that you can start to plan and you can start to think about, how do I scale from here? How do I grow from here? And that's then when you think, okay, so maybe I'll get a bit of freelance support. I'll get somebody that's going to, I was going to say look after emails, but Fixer can do that for you now. AI can do that. But, you can get somebody maybe to take on your social media for you. And you can maybe get somebody that, can help you with some outreach perhaps as you start to grow. So those things start to come on board. And, and then maybe you get to the point where perhaps around the kind of 500,000 to $1 million point, possibly sooner, depends on your business and your business model. You might start thinking, okay, I'm going to employ some people now. I actually need full-time support in my business, or, full-time skills in my business, or I suppose it doesn't necessarily have to be full-time. It can be part-time, but I need skills that are purely concentrating on my business. And you might start to recruit them, and you get a few people in and you start to grow that way. That adds extra complications as well. You've now got people to manage, a team to grow. Teams aren't just born by, I'm just going to recruit these 3 people, I've got a team. That's not how you create a team. That's how you just create a group of people. You've got to build the team together. You've got to build the culture. You've got to build the values and the vision as well, to do that. And, because you need your team to be working with you to help you get to that next level. And nobody's ever going to care about your business as much as you do. So, as much as you might have some fantastic employees and they're brilliant, you couldn't run your business without them, they're not going to care about that business as much as you do. They're not going to be the ones that are going to work, ridiculous hours to push it forward. They're not going to be the ones, well, I hope not anyway, lying awake at night worrying about the business. That's going to be still you. So, you've got to lead them. So at that point, you've got to become a leader, not just a manager. Some people are natural leaders. Some people are born leaders. Some people, that's quite a change, really. Mm-hmm. And so, so at that point, the $1 million mark, you're starting to build a team and you're starting to learn how to become a leader. And that probably at that point, you can get yourself to sort of 1 to 5 million, but you start to need systems and processes. You need to start, and all along this way, you need to be refining your business model. What are you actually offering? What are the packages I'm offering? What the services I'm offering? Because as you grow, the ones that you were offering when you were only turning over 100K were probably very different now to the ones you're turning over as a million, especially if it's a service industry. So, so kind of 1 to 5 systems, processes, structure. And what I see a lot of at that sort of that size of business is resistance sometimes to systems and processes. It depends on the industry, depends on the person's background. If you've got somebody that's always been entrepreneurial, that doesn't really have much experience in corporate, then they'll resist that heavily. 9 times out of 10, they'll be, I don't want that. That just makes me corporate. I don't want to be a corporate. I want my business to be fun. I want my business to be agile, dynamic. I want my, I don't want that. I don't want, guardrails. I don't want things I have to do. But actually, if you kind of want to keep growing, you do have to have a certain level of structure. And that could be, systems that you need, processes that you need, policies that you need, all the things that you need as you grow as a business and become more of a grown-up business. So that's quite, that's quite a growth phase there from 1 to sort of 5, and certainly kind of 5 to 10, that really does start to kind of kick in, where you really do need to understand what your business model is, understand, what finances you need to keep scaling your business. If you want to keep scaling, you really need to make sure you've got the right people in your team and that you're developing your people and you're developing yourself as a leader and you have clear strategy and direction and that you aren't stuck in the day-to-day. Now, if you're happy at any of those levels, fantastic. You know, nobody has to scale a business, you know, and I think that, you know, if you are on a journey to scale your business, to grow your business, fantastic. But everybody has a different idea of what a, you know, successful business is, what a scaled, grown up business is. And I think that, you know, that can get lost sometimes. I think sometimes you can get caught up in a world of what you see on social media and what people are portraying, and think that, oh, I've got to have, you know, I've got to have X million in the bank, I've got to have the flashy car, I've got to have the watches, I've got to have the big holidays. And, you know, and you can chase that for a while and do that for a while potentially. But actually, you know, that can actually leave you quite lonely. And I think that there is a point as well in a you know, when a business is growing, when you kind of get to the 5-10 million mark and you're starting to feel a little bit soulless, in as much as like, why am I doing this? What am I doing it for? Particularly if you maybe have got a family at that point and you think, I'm not spending enough time with my kids, I'm not seeing them grow up, I want to travel more, I'm stuck in my business, I'm tied into my business, this isn't what I created my business for. I wanted freedom, I wanted flexibility, and you can lose that if you're not careful. And so it's about structuring the business to be what you want it to be, and remembering what it is that you wanted that business to do for you when you first started it, when you were way back down here and you first created that business and you were turning over 100k. Why did you do that? What was the reason you started your business? You know, was it, you know, at that point, was it because you just wanted the money? Or was it because, you know, you wanted the flexibility? Is it because you wanted freedom? You know, what were your reasons? And your reasons will change as your life changes, because obviously, you know, that's normal. That happens, right? And I think sometimes, you know, you can get to the point where people get to the point now where they're in 5-10 million, even bigger maybe, and they're thinking like, I just don't want to do this anymore. And it's not necessarily because they're burnt out. It's just because the love for the business has gone, because it's hard work. It's hard work scaling a business and growing a business. And unless you're really passionate about it and you really care about it and you really care about the direction you're going in and you can see where you want to get to and there's a reason to get there, then you can start to get to the point where the kind of like, you know, the love for it goes. And that might be the point where you think, okay, I'm ready to exit. I want to exit now because I want a different life. You know, and it's different for different people, and it happens at different stages for different people. So a lot of what I do is working with founders where the businesses have become dependent on them. So, you know, I'm a founder dependency expert, and I'll deal with businesses where we've got to that point, probably around the 5 million point, where like, you know, it's just feels a lot. Everything's still coming to them. They've got a team, you know, they've got some systems, but actually, you know, everything still ends up at them. So they can be at the office for a day, they can come back in and their inbox is full, or there's like everybody wants to speak to them because they want help making a decision. And that's founder dependency. It's when you go off to do, you know, you say you go off to an event for the day and you're checking your phone constantly, or, you know, the office is ringing you, or somebody's calling you, or a customer's after you. It needs you. The business can't run without you in it. That's founder dependency. And that's not fun. It's not healthy. It doesn't help you scale your business. And so, you know, you need the systems, the processes, the people, the structure to help you get to that next stage. And that's where I come in and help clients, really.
You talk a lot about founder dependency. I saw some of the videos as well. What point do you think that their business quietly outgrows the founder dependency, or the founder itself, I guess?
Yeah. And I think that's, you mean for the founder to get out of the dependency box?
Yeah.
Or what point do they start to realise
it?
So yeah.
Essentially, let's just say I started there, for example. I started about 5 years ago. Now I'm quite deep in with a lot of staff members and so on. At what point does the business become founder independent? Because I feel like even 5 years in the business and different businesses that I'm involved in, I still believe to a certain extent it would always remain dependent. If on my seat, like not just on me as a person, as an individual, but there still would need to have someone there that is holding that position.
Absolutely, yeah. And it will always be reliant, you know, while you're in the business and the business you created, it will absolutely need you to lead it. You know, there's a difference between, you know, being reliant on the founder and being founder dependent. So reliant on the founder for leadership, for direction, for strategy, you know, for encouragement, for enthusiasm, for drive, for passion, all those things. They're good things. They're healthy things. They're things that the founder brings to the business. Founder dependent is when we talk about it can't function. It can't do the day-to-day operations without you being there and stuck in it. And that's the difference. You know, and quite often I'll find that people will reach out to me because they're like, they want help with their team, and maybe their team is like, I need to hire somebody, we're too busy, can you help me? I don't know what kind of role to get next, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, actually, the question really is like, is hiring the right solution right now? Because I often find that should be the last question you ask, not the first question you ask. When it feels too much, when your inbox is full, when your phone's always ringing, and when everybody keeps coming to you for the answers, you might naturally think, I need somebody else to help me. And yes, you probably do need somebody else to help me, but that's probably a coach or an advisor or a consultant. It's probably not a permanent hire at that point, not till you've actually stopped and looked at the business and thought, okay, so where am I taking this business? What's the next stage for me? What is my plan? What is my strategy? Am I looking to acquire? Am I looking to grow through acquisition? Am I looking to exit? Am I just looking to continue to grow for now? Am I somebody that's got, a number of business interests and I'm spending too much time on this one business and these businesses need me too? So it starts with a bit of self-reflection and thinking about you as a founder. What do you want from your business? How can your business serve you? What do you need from it to give you the life that you built it for in the first place? And that takes a bit of introspective looking sometimes, and a bit of like, okay, so what do I want my life to look like? And that can be a big question sometimes. Yeah, sometimes it's really clear, and and you're like, well, I don't want it to look like this. I want to be on the beach in, or somewhere. Well, I was going to say Dubai, but right now it's a tricky place to be as well, right? But I want to be somewhere else, and I want to be enjoying life and experiencing life, and I want the business to continue running while I'm not in it. I'll be contactable, I'll be accessible, but I don't want to be stuck in the day-to-day, and that's the difference, is getting out of the day-to-day. And so I've got a framework that I run through called the DASH framework, which is what I do with founders. And we sit down and we start with those big questions about what do you want your life to look like, or what does good feel like for you? And then we look at kind of, what are you dealing with every day? What's coming to you? What is it that's on your plate? And, and we work through the DASH framework, and we look at what is there on your plate that you can delegate, that you shouldn't really be sitting with you anymore in this role. Maybe it's something you've always done since day one when you first started out, when it was just you. And actually, as much as, it's easy for you to do, should you really be the person that's doing that anymore? Is that not something that still keeps you in the day to day? And, and we work through those things that are on your plate that we could look at what's delegating it. Now, there is something really key here. You shouldn't take away the things you enjoy. So, when you're delegating, you need to delegate away the things that somebody else can do just as well as you, or almost as well as you. I'll come back to that. You need to delegate the things that are holding the business back from growing, if that's what you want, if you're on a growth trajectory. If you're happy with where the business is and you just want more time for you, then that's not necessarily about growth. That's more about stability. But we work through that. But you need to make sure that the bits of your business that you do enjoy the most, that the things that float your boat, that when you're in flow, the things that you get up for in the morning, the things that give you the buzz, you still probably want to hang on to those, or as much of that as possible. So, for instance, if, we're looking at your business, for instance, and we're looking at a list of everything that's on your plate, it wouldn't work if somebody else was sitting in that chair right now and was sitting here asking me questions. It's your podcast. This is your business. It's you. Mm-hmm. And if you weren't doing that, you'll be like, well, what's the point? So there is a lot to go through. It's not just a case of drawing up a list and, well, I'll do that and they do that. There's a lot to work through. And then you can start to look at what you can automate. By that, I mean introducing a systems, using AI, and anything in your business that's a repeatable task, you really should look at automating in some way. Because there's there'll definitely be a system out there. And if there isn't, you can build one now. Or you find somebody that build it for you, like yourself.
One of the things that I personally struggle with in business is, to a certain extent, certain tasks are hard to let go, even though there's someone else that can do it.
Yes.
I don't know, now that I think about it, it's probably because I know that I will 100% get it right. Or if it's a client meeting, for example, I tend to attend them myself when I can. I can't attend all of them, but when I can, I do that, because as a founder, I feel like when I'm there, is most likely to convert. The conversion rate also is, in terms of facts, on what I got on my CRM as well.
Yeah.
Into the meetings that I have been, or into the calls that I have made, the conversion rate has been very much higher as comparison to when the staff members have done it.
Absolutely.
And it's not like the staff members lack the skills. They still have those skills, hence we hired them.
Yeah.
But how do you balance that out? It's a big question that I feel like everybody wonders.
And I think, and you're absolutely right. Nobody cares about your business. Nobody knows your business as well as you do, like we said before. And yeah, the conversion rate when a founder's in the room is generally a lot higher than, when your team's in the room. Now, that doesn't mean that there's something wrong with your team. You'll have a great team, you'll train them well, but you naturally, as the founder, as a person that created that business, will have more passion for it. You can make decisions they can't make as well. So, you can make a decision on the spot that your team perhaps can't make. So there is a...
How do you overcome that?
Well, there is a bit around ownership and about accountability and about making sure that your team, the structure that you have and the people in it are the people that have the skill set that you need, first off. And then they need to be able to understand what they own and where they're, where they can make decisions and what they are accountable for and what they're allowed to make decisions for. I think what happens quite often in scaling businesses, growing businesses, is that you see that the founder rescues the team all the time. And it's a natural thing to do because you want to help. So you're maybe let's say you're in a client meeting, the client meeting you talked about, you're in there with the team, client asks a question or potential client asks the question, and you dive in with the answer. Okay, so they'll hear it, that your team will hear it, but you haven't really allowed them to try and solve the problem for themselves. Now, okay, so maybe in that circumstances, it's not always possible. It does need to be you because you want to win the job, right? But I think when you're in a meeting or when you're having a conversation with a client, with your team, if you're always coming in with the answer for them, then you're rescuing, and they're not going to learn for themselves. And also, it may well be that they are taking in the answers. They do know the answer, but because you've jumped in with the answer, it becomes a habit. They're like, well, we won't answer that because you're going to answer that question. You know the answer to that question. So like, we just sit here quietly because you'll answer that question. We don't need to answer it. So they don't speak up for themselves then. They kind of like, because they don't see that as their answer to give. And so you're kind of almost rescuing them without meaning to and without them realizing it because you're answering the question for them. So I think it's about letting your team have responsibilities and allowing them to own those responsibilities. So, you're responsible for X. These tasks sit with you, and you come and see me if you need help or if you need support. We're all here for you, but these are yours to own, and you let them own them in their way. And there, and I think that there's Dan Martell says it. I don't know if you ever come across Dan Martell and Buy Back Your Time, etc. It's a really good book for anybody that's running a business. You should definitely read it. He says, 80%, somebody else's 80% is good enough because nobody else, like we said, will be 100% into that business as much as you. That you're very unlikely to find somebody that's going to do anything in your business as well as you can for the purpose of the business. So yes, you'll get technical people that can do things better than you. You'll get people in the business that can do things you don't have the skills for. But the things you have the skills for, the thing you built the business for, nobody else is going to do it as well as you. So you need to accept then that they'll do it 80% as well as you, and 80% is generally actually really, really good. We're talking about the difference between an A and an A star. We're not talking about that's not good enough and that's good enough. We're talking about that's really good, and that's just that little bit more because I'm the founder and I can make those decisions and I just know a little bit more. So, and if you let your team make decisions, if you let your team own responsibilities and solve problems for themselves, and then they'll do it more because they've got the confidence that that's okay for them to do. If you don't, you'll find you'll go out of the office for the day, you come back in and they're like, oh, what should we do about this? So we had this happen today, and can I do that? And can we do this? And can we do that? And before you even sit down and think about what you want to think about and working on the business, you're kind of like, you're just inundated with questions because you weren't there for the day and because they didn't know what they could make, what they could answer for themselves, what they could own for themselves. Now, if it's a training need because they don't yet know the answers, they don't yet, you've got somebody in your team who's only been here a month, he's probably still learning how your business works. He may well not have the answers yet, and that's cool. It'll take time. It takes time to understand a business, time to have the confidence to make decisions when you're not there. But if you've got somebody that's been in the team for a long while and they're still coming to you for answers to questions they should know the answer to or know the answer to, then there's something not quite right. And it's not necessarily on them. It could be on you rescuing them, you giving them the answers, you not giving them space to have their voice. Or maybe it is a training issue and that's a separate thing to look at.
Interesting. Because every time we look at, as I said, I think the scariest thing for any service provider business or service-based business essentially is delegating the task that you are doing to someone else, because there's so much that could go wrong. It's not really a product where a client comes in and gets the product and goes out. But yeah, nicely put. I think I'm exactly on the same page. I don't think I got too much to add on that side. One more thing that leads to though is, let's say that you have trained someone really well, and obviously you expect them to perform at a certain standards, and we're talking about good and not amazing, I guess. But if that good is still not getting achieved and you have tried everything, I come across so many people. Not to be honest, a lot of them had to do with HR, and there was a guest that was dealing with HR side of the things as well. And my argument on it is, if a person can't perform the job, I would replace. That's the way I look at it as a founder. Whereas their argument is, if they can't perform the job, then you should invest more time into them and then teach them so they can perform the job. Where do you stand with this, and what do you think?
I think it depends on the circumstances, depends on the individual, depends on the job that you ask them to do. So if you're finding that problem happening, you need to, as a business owner, if anybody's finding that problem happening, you need to first off look at your recruitment process. Are you actually recruiting for the right role? And what I would say, and that's kind of part of my framework really, is when you look at hiring people, make sure you're hiring for the right role. Don't hire for the problem you've got right at that moment. You've got something that you think, I just need somebody to come in and deal with this. You need to think about, okay, so once they've dealt with that, what's their job going to be then? Is there still a job after that? Are there other things that you need them to do? Or is this just a quick fix for now? Because if it's just quick fix for now, then you might be better off somebody freelance or outsourcing it. Or if it's a quick fix for now, then fine, but think about what they're going to be doing after they've done that thing, whatever that thing may be, right? So it's about making sure that you've got a really clear job description for somebody when they're coming into the business. And in that job description, you tell them what their role is, but you also tell them what the expectations on them are. So what good looks like. So in 6 months, we want you to have achieved X, Y, and Z, and maybe, in a year, we'd like you to be doing X, Y, and Z. So, and then you need to make sure that you're having regular check-ins with that person. When you onboard them, you onboard them well, and then you keep the communication going, and you are always coming back to what the deliverables are and how are they doing. And you're giving them then the best chance of success. You've got to set them up for success. And they probably will need some training. They'll need to understand your business, they need training on your business. They might need some training in the role. It's not often that somebody moves sideways for a job. Most people are looking to progress their careers, so they're looking for the next step up. So you hire somebody into the role that's got most of the experience, but perhaps not all the experience. So there is a training element needed. You do need to teach them that bit more, because as humans, we like to learn and we like to be stretched. So, it's not often you'll get somebody that's just going to move sideways. You are going to need to develop them as well. And if you're doing all those things, you set them up for success, you give them the support, you give them the training they need to do the job, and then they're not succeeding, then that's when you go on to performance management. And then you try and see whether or not there's something that can be done to get them to perform and identify what it is. And if they're not the right person for the role, then you just do need to say goodbye. But, you need to do it in the right way.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
That's okay.
So a question that I do ask to all of my guests at the end is, if you could give an advice or a piece of advice to your younger self, what would that be?
I would say be brave. Be brave. If I think that you won't regret trying something, but you will regret not trying. So, I think that if you've got opportunities that come your way and it's something you want to do, something you want to try, especially for a business owner, if you think that actually, you want to go out alone and do it, if you want it hard enough, if you want it enough and you're prepared to put in the work, do it. Because you at least you tried. Whereas if you carry on in life and you don't take the opportunity, and you might always wonder, should I have gone for it? Should I have done it? And it's better to live, like I say, having tried, and better to try and fail than to sit with regret, definitely. And you'll learn something for it, even if it doesn't work out, and you'll be on to the next thing. And
Beautifully put. I think that's very much of a common advice from a lot of people that are in business, and I think not enough people realize how important it is to just do the thing essentially.
Figure it out as you go.
And that's it, and that's beautiful. And you put it very nicely, by the way. Thank you.
Yeah.
And once again, thank you so much for coming on to this show, and it was a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you. It's been great to be on. Thank you very much. I've enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you.
Thanks.
There you go.